Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Marcus from InfoSec Governance, and in today's video we're going to be talking about that subject of logging. What is it, why you should be using it, and how it can benefit you. Now, like the rest of these videos on this channel, this video isn't meant to be the be all and end all of the subject. Instead, these videos are just going to be designed to give you a basic understanding of the subject and get you to think about how this would work within your business, and hopefully get you into a place where you could further protect your business and information, as well as hopefully, if you ever have any incidents, then hopefully you're in a good place to actually recover from them and actually go through and investigate it. Now, with the boring bit over and done with, let's just discuss what logging is. Now, logging can come in many different forms, and depending upon what device is actually logging it, may be handled and viewed differently, which doesn't actually make the life of the security or IT teams really easy. However, there are ways and means around this, which we'll discuss later on in this video. So logging, if you didn't already know, is a way for a device such as a computer, firewall, router or anything else to save any type of record event within that device to a file for further analysis. Purely through the act of recording the system level events to a file, this allows you to record a log of data for future reference. Now, depending upon the type of device or operating system that you're on, these log files might actually be kept for a long period of time or overwritten once the file gets to a certain size. Again, this can depend upon the device that you're using. Now, this can help with disk space. The last thing you want to do is actually run out of disk space due to you storing gigabytes of log files, which just increase over time. Now, logging can also be stored or accessed in several different ways. For Microsoft Windows, logging is primarily through their Windows Event Viewer application, and for Mac OS or Linux-based machines, you can actually access your log files through the /var/log directories, and then just view those files as like normal text files. Or you could use the Journal CTL application as well. Now, devices such as firewalls, switches, routers and such all normally log their information internally. However, the majority do have the capability as well to log the device to another device, log the data to another device or storage area, and this can usually go through something called syslog. Now, syslog is a standardized way that machines can actually write all their events to another local file or system like that for future reference and analysis. By logging and analysing events, it can actually help you build a trend of what normality looks like within your environment. If, for example, something goes wrong, you can then investigate the problem easier, and then you can actually look at what previous events should have looked like. It's easy to pick it out when it started happening, and then you can actually see what is happening. So, for example, if you've got a load of logs getting logged, if it's all been nice and clean, you've got a straight flat line saying there's no issues, and then something goes straight up through the roof, you can actually identify quite quickly within the logs that something's completely gone wrong. Normally you'll be able to see exactly what it is. Sometimes if you're logging IP addresses or anything like that, you could actually see, which client has done it, or if it's from an external source, potentially know what IP address or anything like that has happened. Now, another reason is troubleshooting. Troubleshooting is a key area where logs play an important part. If you're not logging the events, then trying to understand what is going on is going to become a complete nightmare, especially during the troubleshooting incident. If you're trying to actually uncover what's going wrong on a device or anything like that, and you can't actually see what things are actually happening, how are you going to troubleshoot it? It's just going to be a case of, I'll try that, I'll try that, I'll try that, I'll try that, and it could be going on for ages. If you've got that logging in place, you could hopefully go through, identify exactly what the issue is, and go from there. Now, how do you know what to log? Well, that's one of those questions, and it'll depend upon the device, the service and applications that you're using. But generally, logging more is better in some circumstances. Log more than less, pretty much. Now, compliance and various regulations is another area where logging comes into effect. Some regulations will state that you need to log these events, such as who's been logged into the systems, when did people log off, what invalid logons were there, and the list just goes on. Obviously, it depends upon what regulations you're complying to or what compliance frameworks you're complying to. But again, normally they say you've got to log something and then prove it as evidence later on. Now, business analytics and analysis, if I can speak the words out, can also benefit from the logging of events. It also allows you to see whether or not your devices are being strained for resources. It can help you manage SLAs with your customers and your services and stuff like that, and it can also help to see if there are any performance impacts. So again, if you're logging like memory metrics, CPU, disk space and stuff like that, if it's on like some kind of device, you can actually monitor those metrics, go through and see what's going on. If you see that the events are going up again, you know that your systems are getting maybe stressed or something like that, and then you can actually either put additional devices in or look at alleviating some of the pressure on it and go from there. Now, as you can see, as soon as you start thinking about logging, logging plays an important part in all areas of your business. And although you may not have thought about it too much, it already happens in the background on most of the systems that you use. You just need to know where to look and what to log and what to read and understand those events when you come to look at it. The last thing you want to do is just jump in, have a look, you just see all these events and you just run away because you just don't understand it. Pay some time, look at it, try and understand what's going on, and that'll give you a much better understanding of what's happening within your business. Most importantly, you need to understand what you're going to be looking at, as I've just said, and make sure that you aren't just logging everything just for the sake of it. Although we did say logging is better than not logging, you also got to have that compromise where if you log too much, you're going to get too much noise, and it's just going to put you off. You're not going to be able to find anything, and it's going to be that old saying, needle in the haystack. If you've got way too many logs, it's going to just fill your logs up. You're just not going to be able to see anything. So you're just going to have to go through your logs, see what you need to log, and then just to log them. So if you don't actually go and log, and more importantly review your logs frequently, either manually or through automatic means, you may be failing to miss important events within your environment, such as people trying to log onto systems via brute force attacks, or your systems just filling up and getting pressurized. Systems which are starting to fail, such as hard drives or memory issues, might not be picked up quickly enough before they fail completely. Again, that's going to impact your metrics or your SLAs and things like that. So incident management would be much harder if you don't actually log anything, as you wouldn't be able to prove anything that's happened. The last thing you want to do is have an incident and you don't have any logs or anything to fall back on. Within incident management, you want those logs in place so you can go back in time, see exactly what's what. You've got that evidential track of what's happened. You can go through and you can prove to people what's happened, especially if it's been some kind of breach or anything like that, because then you've actually got all those login details of the potential breach, gone in, done things, and then you can actually prove that to the evidence and give it to third parties and things like that. Now lastly, you may also be invalidating any compliance that you're adhering to, such as some kind of ISO stuff or anything like that. ISO requires you to actually log stuff in and evidence things every now and then. If you're not logging stuff or evidencing everything, then you could be failing to comply against those areas. So now we know what we need to log events for, and that event logging is important within your business and you can help your business in several ways. How do you actually view and analyze the logs when you actually come to it? Now for Microsoft Windows, it's all based within their Event Viewer console application. You can actually just click on the Start button, go to the Event Viewer, and this will just open up the application. Once the application's opened, you can click on the Windows Logs folder, and there you'll see three main areas, which are Application, Security, and System. Now, depending upon the type of event that's being logged, it'll actually depend upon what area is being logged in. So any type of application event goes in Applications. If people are logging on and logging off, that'll go into System, and go into Security, sorry. And then any type of system stuff, things that have been installed and things like that, can go into System. So you can just go through and have a look at it. And then obviously there's other sections within the Event Viewer which has more information about Active Directory and things like that, which you can just delve into. Now within the Event Viewer, you can actually go in and filter against various IDs and descriptions and stuff, just to make your life a little bit easier. For macOS and Linux operating systems, there's several ways to do this as well. However, to review your logs, but the easiest way is probably just having a look in your /var/log directory and just have a look at all the files which are stored in there. The text files, so you can just open them up, read them, have a look at any errors that are in there and go from there. And then obviously, with anything else, with error checking or anything, stuff like that, have a look at the IDs, have a look at the descriptions, get onto your search engine, do a search and find how to fix it. Now, reading log files and keeping logs and all that is all great, but however, if you've got more than 2 or 3 machines, the last thing you want to do is just have all the logs locally on your machine, because it's just going to be an absolute nightmare, and it's going to be an absolute nightmare to actually manage anything. So what you want to do is actually centralize all your logging. And if you've got 2 or more machines, just centralize it all, and there's a number of ways to do this. So for Microsoft Windows, you can actually look at using the add-on service application called Sysmon. This is from Microsoft, and it also allows you to configure your login and forward the logs to another location. I'll stick a link in for that below the video so you can have a look at it. And for other devices, you can also use syslog to forward the events to another location as well. That's primarily for routers, firewalls, switches, Mac OS stuff, Linux, things like that. However, when you're looking at using centralized login, there are several parts you need to look at. These can be mainly storage, visibility and readability. So the last thing you want to do is run out of disk space, and you also want an easy way of actually identifying any issues that you're logging. So dashboarding and stuff like that would be great. Now here in the UK, the NCSC has released a project called Logging Made Easy, or LME, and it's designed for small businesses which can help you actually log all the information and go from there. It uses all open source software and licensing, so it won't actually cost you anything other than the hardware that you need to run all the services and things like that. Again, I'll add a link in below the video for that so you can have a look at it. Other solutions you can use are third-party solutions, or products such as Loggly, Datadog, SolarWinds, Greylog, and the list just goes on. It depends upon your business and your criteria and things like that. Now I hope that's it. I hope this has made some sense to you and gets you thinking about what logging is, what you're currently logging, or aren't you logging. Are you going to log after you've watched this video, and go from there. Yep, so I hope this has made sense, and yeah, feel free to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.